Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to today's daily newspaper analysis, which is part of Roznama by Clat Possible. I would be remiss if I did not remind you to check out Roznama on our website, clatpossible.com. It's basically a daily mini Clat. It has the top 5 news stories of the day with related information. It gives you this daily newspaper analysis video and vocabulary to practice each and every day. All of this is available to you for free on clatpossible.com. So let's make a quick start. The first article we have is basically a statement or a speech by Lula da Silva. Now let me ask you, Brazil, right? The largest country in South America, as well as one of our partners in the BRICS group of countries. By the way, who is the chair of BRICS this year? It is India, and within India, it is Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Okay, as you know, we recently had the India AI Impact Summit 2026 on the theme Sarvajan Hitaya, Sarvajan Sukhaya. And as you might have seen, many world leaders attended. The most prominent of them were President Emmanuel Macron of France and President Luis Inacio Lula da Silva. Okay, so I just wanted to flag this. There were important takeaways from both of their bilateral visits as well. And in fact, we signed critical minerals cooperation deals with both France and Brazil. Okay, let's go on. So this is again from the same visit. As you know, India as well as Brazil are two very important representatives of what we call the global south. Okay, of what we call the global south. Now, what is the global south? The global south is the category or group of countries which are still in a developing stage, which are not yet fully developed countries. Okay, so please remember this word global south, and related to this, we also have another term in geopolitics, which is South-South cooperation. So South-South cooperation implies cooperation among middle income and developing countries, where they stand in solidarity with each other. If you take a look at the previous article which I had flagged here, you will see what had Lula said. Time for the nations facing tariffs from the US to unionize. So what Lula's suggestion was that individually, one of our countries may not have the power and leverage to negotiate against the United States with some strength. Instead, what Brazil suggested, what Lula da Silva suggested, is that countries of the global south could come together as a bloc and then, with their combined negotiating power, extract concessions from the larger powers, for example, the United States. Okay, let's proceed. Next, we have this article which mentions that till date, the highest ranking Maoist leader has surrendered. Okay, so in fact, he had previously headed the CPI Maoist Central Military Commission. Okay, he was known as Devuji. Okay, what do you have to link this to? We have discussed in previous sessions that the Home Minister has set a target of March 31st for the elimination of left-wing extremism, by which he means Naxalism, as well as the related Maoist thought. Okay, so in fact, the Communist Party of India Maoist or CPI Maoist is a party which is banned in India. It's an unlawful association under the UAPA. Okay, so one of the very senior leaders of CPI Maoist has now surrendered, and as you can see at the top here, it mentions the March 31st deadline to end Naxalism. What are some facts to remember? Just keep in mind that Naxalism is named after a village of West Bengal called Naxalbari. okay, which is where the movement began. Primarily, it originated as a movement comprising of tribal populations trying to move against developmental projects which would have encroached upon their land. Okay, so that is the context. We have discussed this in detail. I think Ananya ma'am has done it as well. So let's move forward without any delay. The next article we have here is by a former Chief Election Commissioner, S.Y. Qureshi. Okay, so it's titled Parliament's Historic Law and an Extended Wait for Women. Okay, before we get into the article, let's get some facts clear. Who is the current Chief Election Commissioner? It is Gyanesh Kumar. Who was the first Chief Election Commissioner? Anyone? It was Sukumar Sen. And who was the first female Chief Election Commissioner? It was V.S. Rama Devi. So these three are the important people to know about with respect to the Election Commission of India. Now, what is this article about? This article is about the Women's Reservation Act, which is called the Nari Shakti Adhiniyam. Okay, so this was a law that had been passed in 2023, providing for 1/3 reservation of seats for women in Parliament as well as the state legislatures. What do you have to remember? The amendment number, because it required an amendment of the Constitution. So what is that amendment? It is the 106th Amendment Act. Okay. So the key details, its names, we can say 106th Amendment, Nari Shakti Adhiniyam, Women's Reservation Act can also be a popular name by which it is known. Reservation where? Parliament and state legislatures. For whom? Women. How many seats? 1/3 of the seats. And or initially, how long will this reservation last? 15 years. 15 years. But why does this article say that an extended wait for women has been put in place? That is because under this law, under the 106th Amendment, it comes into force after two different things happen. Number one, the census takes place. So the next census is the census of 2027, which was originally scheduled to happen in 2021. So this 106th Amendment says that women's reservation will come into force after the census occurs and after the census, once the delimitation of seats occurs. So once both the conditions are completed, only then will Women's Reservation Act be implemented, or the 106th Amendment Act will only be implemented after that. So this former Chief Election Commissioner, S.Y. Qureshi, has written an article in today's The Hindu describing these details. Let's now move forward. We have another very interesting and important article in The Hindu written by P.D.T. Acharya, who used to be the Secretary General of the Lok Sabha. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if you've never heard of this position. The Secretary General of the Lok Sabha is not some member of Parliament. It's usually an official who is there to assist the Speaker in performing the functions of the House. So this relates to the latest winter session and budget session of Parliament, especially in the first part of the budget session, which has just taken place. There were significant issues where MPs were obstructed from speaking. For instance, the leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi, was prevented from completing his speech on the excuse that he was quoting from an unpublished book. Let alone that part, he was not allowed to speak at all. Similarly, in the Rajya Sabha, the leader of the opposition, Mallikarjun Kharge, spoke. But once the proceedings of Parliament, which are written down and published, came out, it emerged that the chairman of the Rajya Sabha had expunged or deleted several parts of his speech. So P.D.T. Acharya in this article writes about the privileges of members of Parliament, which are provided in Article 105 of the Constitution. right, which gives members the privilege to speak in parliament, the freedom of speech in parliament. Okay, so that is what this is centered on. If you want to read more and know more about this and practice some questions on it for legal reasoning, you can log into the Roznama today, and you will find there several questions discussing legal knowledge and legal reasoning based on this particular article. Okay, let's move forward. Now, this article I simply wanted to flag because the Enforcement Directorate, or the ED, keeps coming in the news, and it faces significant allegations of targeting the opposition as well as the business community. And the allegation of the opposition is that it acts as a representative of the ruling party. Okay, so the Enforcement Directorate, for these reasons, keeps coming in the news. In fact, its cases have been responsible for putting many opposition leaders in jail, including Arvind Kejriwal. Okay, so all I wanted to flag for you today is the name of the director. So who is the director of Naveen? Okay, Rahul Naveen is the director of ED. What is that main law which the ED enforces and investigates? The primarily deals with financial crimes which are provided in the PMLA, the Exchange Management Act. Okay, so those are coming up. Something important, it will bring back Israel and Gaza in the news, especially in India. Of in Gaza, in the state of Palestine, it has continued to be in the news. However, last year there were signs that there would be peace, of which he has appointed himself lifetime chair. So all of these things have occurred. However, attacks and problems are ongoing still. Okay, on Israel's part, the attacks have not fully ceased. We see reports of people dying each and every day from Palestine, from Gaza. And not only that, Israel is expanding its settler colonialist activities in the West Bank as well. So its activities are not just restricted to the Gaza Strip, but also to the West Bank. Now, in this sort of overall background, the Prime Minister is visiting the state of Israel. Okay, so let's see what the outcomes of this visit are. If you remember, you can link this with a recent India-Arab League foreign ministers meeting, which had taken place earlier this month in February. So this is again similar. Let me just ask you one or two questions. So number one, who is the Prime Minister of Israel? It is Benjamin Netanyahu. Who is the President of Israel? It is Isaac Herzog. Right? What is the Parliament of Israel called? It is called the Knesset. What is the intelligence agency of Israel called? It's called the Mossad. Okay, so just keep these facts in mind. Well, of course, what is weird is that the Prime Minister is only visiting Israel and not the state of Palestine. Remember, India recognizes both Israel and Palestine as independent countries. Okay, moving forward, things was the inauguration of the Delhi Meerut RRTS. Okay, so this is the first of its kind. It's called the Namo Bharat RRTS. Okay, so what is RRTS? It stands for Regional Rapid Transport System. Okay, Regional Rapid Transport System, RRTS, and it runs between Delhi and Meerut. So it is enabled for very high speeds and vastly reduces the travel time between the two places. Okay, so you have to remember first RRTS, full form of RRTS, regional. What is it called? It is called Namo Bharat Regional Rapid Transport System. So it's essentially, between Delhi and places around Delhi. In the first phase, it is Delhi Meerut. Okay, so please keep this in mind. Okay, let's now move forward. So once again, an article about AI Impact Summit. If you've been following Roznama over the last few days, you would have realized we have covered it in depth in the top 5 news stories of each day. We've dedicated almost 7 or 8. What you see here is also within the Rashtrapati Bhavan. One statue is being replaced by a new statue. So whose statue is being removed? It is the statue of Edwin Lutyens, right? Who was basically the architect of Imperial Delhi, meaning the capital of Delhi, as designed to become the capital of the British Indian Empire, right? So that was Edwin Lutyens. Many of the iconic buildings which you see in central Delhi have actually been designed by Edwin Lutyens. So there is a statue of him in the Rashtrapati Bhavan. That statue is being removed today and being replaced by a statue of C. Rajagopalachari, Chakravarti Rajgopalachari, or Rajaji, or CR. Okay, why is he an important figure? He was actually the last Governor General of India and the first Indian Governor General of India. Okay, now remember, after independence, so after 15th August 47, but till 26 Jan 1950, India remained a dominion. It only became a republic on 26th of January 1950. So in those 3, who was the first Governor General after independence? It was Louis Mountbatten. And after that, it was the first Indian Governor General of India, C. Rajagopalachari. Okay, so Lutyens' statue is now being replaced by the statue of Rajaji. Moving on, in other important news, as you might have seen over the last few days, which in short is written as SCOTUS, SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States. So what had the Supreme Court struck down? The US Supreme Court said that the president did not have the power to levy tariffs under the IEEPA, okay, International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Why is that? The court said that the power of taxation is a power which belongs to their parliament, which is known as Congress. And it can only be exercised by the president if the Congress has explicitly authorized the president to do it, which under the IEEPA is not the case. Hence, the US Supreme Court struck down the Liberation Day reciprocal tariffs which had been imposed. Okay. Now, what happened after that? Remember, on India earlier, there were 2 tariffs. One, the Liberation Day reciprocal tariff of 25%, and 2, another secondary tariff or ad valorem tariff of 25%, because the US said we buy Russian oil. Okay. Now, recently, the US and India had reached sort of a framework of a deal whereby the Russian oil tariff would be removed and the reciprocal tariff under IEPA would be reduced to 18%. The final documentation had not been signed, which is why the news today is that the trade deal between India and the US, the talks to finalize it have been suspended and rescheduled because there is so much lack of clarity. In fact, after the US Supreme Court struck down the Trump tariffs under IEEPA, Trump again imposed a 10% tariff under a different act called the Trade Act. But under that, there is a strict limit of 150 days on the expiry of the tariffs, and it allows a maximum of 15% tariffs. So originally, Trump imposed 10% under that, and then a day later increased it to 15%. That is where we stand right now. In any case, the talks to finalize the Indo-US trade deal have been rescheduled. All right. So all of the entire story which I just told you about is provided in these important articles. One of these is on page 9 of the Indian Express. You can see it behind me. And the other good explainer on this is in the Indian Express on page 10. Okay, this is an editorial. The other one is an explainer. One last thing I wanted to flag for you is the name of the US Supreme Court Chief Justice. He is John Roberts. Okay, so since this is a law exam and this has become important because the US Supreme Court struck down the tariffs imposed by Trump, it has a significance for India. So we should know the name of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. So his name is John Roberts. What I want you to remember about the US Supreme Court is, it is a court of 9 judges who always sit together. They do not sit in benches. So all 9 hear each and every case. Secondly, who appoints the judges in the US? It is the president, but the president can only nominate. It is the upper house of the US Congress, which is the Senate, which has to approve them after the president nominates. Third important thing, in the US, the Supreme Court judges serve lifetime terms. That is to say, once they are appointed at whatever age, they continue to serve as judges till the end of their lives or till they resign. Okay, so those are some important facts I want you to remember relating to the US Supreme Court. Okay, now something very disturbing, the government of Gujarat is proposing that there should be a condition on the registration of marriages. What should that condition be? That the marriage will only be registered once the parents of the spouses give their consent. This is a wholly regressive move by the Gujarat government. It has not been passed yet, but let's see what happens with that. In any case, if it is passed, it is extremely likely to be struck down as unconstitutional for violating the right to equality, the doctrine of manifest arbitrariness, the right to life and personal liberty, the right to dignity, privacy, autonomy, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so it is very important to keep this in mind. One would hope this does not come into effect, but in case this does, it will be one more case which will have to be decided by the courts. Okay, at any rate, the move is quite regressive. What is it that's being proposed by the government of Gujarat? That your marriage can only be registered if your parents give their consent. Okay. Moving forward, this article is something we have done in a prior edition of the Roznama, both in the newspaper analysis as well as through questions. This was a judgment of the Supreme Court, I think in the beginning of February, where they gave a ruling about the standard needed for a patient to demand a certain treatment. Okay, so the constitutional question in this case was whether a patient can demand as a right untested or unverified or non-approved treatment, right? If a patient can demand as a right experimental treatment, okay, the Supreme Court said no, because yes, it's the patient's autonomy to consent to a medical procedure or to treatment, but a patient can only give their consent once they have the full set of information. In case of experimental procedures, how is it possible for somebody to have the full information? And if somebody does not have the full information, they cannot possibly give their informed consent. Hence, the Supreme Court said that we do not have a constitutional right to experimental treatment. This case was in the context of persons suffering from autism. And what was the experimental treatment being demanded? It was stem cell therapy. Okay. I think the last two, something very interesting, an Indian film, that too a Manipuri film called Boong, has won the best children's and family film, where at BAFTA. Okay. So this is a significant one. Very few Indians or Indian movies have actually won BAFTAs. This movie Boong is supported by Farhan Akhtar. It is a Manipuri film, however, and it has won the Best Children's and Family Film Award. Okay, you can see the details. Now it says secures the first BAFTA win for India. So film, right, winning the best film in any category, this is a first. Okay, and I told you the important details. Boong is the name of the movie. It is a Manipuri film. It's the first film to win in the best film category at the BAFTAs. Okay, all right. Finally, yes, we've already covered the news about Rajaji. So please do study. For you, the homework is to find out the architects of the Rashtrapati Bhavan, the architects of the North and South blocks. Why are the North and South blocks important? Because recently they have been vacated. They are going to be turned into a museum, Yuge Yugin Bharat Museum. And the Prime Minister's office, the Cabinet Secretariat, the National Security Council have shifted into the Seva Tirth, which is a new building. And the other important ministries have shifted into Kartavya Bhavan 1 and Kartavya Bhavan 2. Okay. However, this particular news we've already seen, the statue of Edwin Lutyens being replaced by a statue of C. Rajagopalachari, the last Governor General of India and the first Indian Governor General of India. Okay, so that's all for today. We try to keep it, short and sweet. Keep tuning in. You can subscribe to our channel if you don't want to miss these videos. They are, of course, all on a playlist if you want to go day by day. But above all, I recommend and advise that you log in to the Roznama on almost a mini Clat each day with questions from each and every section based on each day's editorial. Okay, so some of the editorials you've seen today would be covered with questions, and usually we upload it by 7 or 8 p.m. in the evening. So you can make it your daily habit, build some daily momentum. Nice to see you all. Good evening and goodbye.